Hi, Sue. Really good to have you on board. So I'm really looking forward to our chat today, actually. We're obviously talking from a perspective of leaders in the EdTech marketplace. And you've obviously been a leader in education, so in schools, but also at the same time, you're now in EdTech itself. And it'd be really good to get that perspective on, how maybe it's different in the sense of, the way that basically things work, but also what have you brought into EdTech? I think I'm really interested in as well. Sure. But before we start, just give us a little bit of a background, where you've been, what you've been up to, just general sort of, I suppose, introduction into your life in education, I guess.
Yeah, in education. Okay, so my background is I started off as a science teacher. So I trained in science, worked my way through the curriculum route. So I taught A-level chemistry, biology for years, and then head of science, led a science department for a number of years, and then finished my teaching career as a deputy head, curriculum deputy head. So responsible for the usual things that curriculum deputy heads responsible for, standards across Key Stage 4, Key Stage 5 at different times, curriculum construction timetable, that kind of thing. So that's where I was at the end of my education, my teaching career. I worked at Windsor Girls' School, which is a state comp in Windsor, for many years, and as a deputy for the sort of second half of that. Wow. We had various Ofsted inspections across that time, from 2008 through to when I gave up the deputy headship in 2016, and they were progressively. So we started off on a unfortunately on a required improvement footing around 2008 with the incoming new head, which was actually probably quite a beneficial thing, because it gave her the impetus. It gave her the leverage more than the impetus. The impetus was always there. The leverage to make changes, and as we moved from that point onwards, we were very process focused. Pretty much changed everything across the school in terms of processes, from behaviour right through to how we tracked, and that's relevant to my role now, how we tracked student progress. Yeah. And as part of that, we picked up a rather sort of dusty Alps report that would have been sitting on one of our desks, and kind of went, let's look at this and see what this tells us in the sort of way of getting to grips with our standards. Didn't like what it told us, no fault of Alps, but obviously we're responsible for that. Yeah. And then we systematically set about improving that and improving our progress scores, our progress values, and we used Alps as a tool to do that. And we got an outstanding. That was the sort of final Ofsted that we had whilst I was at Windsor Girls. So that, I have to say, is probably one of the moments when, if you're lying on your deathbed and you go, what have you, that outstanding, the moment that inspector said, and that's outstanding in that box too, was it was such a rewarding moment in a pinnacle. So amazing. It was an amazing moment. So when I decided that I'd kind of needed a break from the whole senior leadership thing, makes sense. I went part-time, working at the same school, working at Windsor Girls. Managed to be given an A-level geography group. Don't know how that happened, but anyway, got given that, and looked around really, and Alps happened to be recruiting at that point for consultants, and I thought, okay, let's see if they want me, if they want me to work as a consultant, and they did, which was great. So I kind of parallel did some part-time teaching and part-time Alps consultancy for a year or so, a couple of years. And then the CEO said to me, would you like to come and join us full time? Because she knew that I sort of said, right, enough of the teaching now. I need to make a break from Windsor Girls, which I said yes. That was in 2016. 2017, I think, beginning of 2017. And so, yeah, now I started by leading the education team at Alps, which is a group of us who are all ex-senior leaders. And we bring that sort of expertise of, I've done the job in school. I know what senior leaders are looking for, and we collectively kind of contribute to that. The training agenda at Alps at the time, and we go out and we talk to school leaders. We did kind of critical friend work. We still do all of that, and that's great. And you know, moving that part of Alps forward, making sure that we're listening to our schools and that we're kind of responding to that. And then about what was it now? It's October, so probably about a year ago now. The CEO and I started to talk about how important it is for the product itself and the direction of the product and what the product can do for school leaders and school teachers, and how important it is to really understand that management of that product development from someone who's kind of done that role and who's used that kind of language culture in a school. And so about a year ago, I landed myself the role of product owner, which I'd never heard of that kind of role before. And so for the last year, I've effectively been working really more and more closely as the year's gone on with our with our engineering team, so our developers, our software developers, our data developers. And looking at how we can enhance the product really, and how we bring more and more features and enhancements to that product across the platform. So this is where I find myself today, which is leading the education team and the product development team. I work with a group of really talented engineers and wider people outside, or as sort of part of that engineering team, and together we really I think have made a significant difference to the product already, and we've got grand plans in the next sort of couple of years to make even more useful enhancements that will really support schools, I think.
I might try and drag some of those ideas out of you, but I won't right now. But I might try. I'm not sure you're going to give them to me, but I might try.
I'm happy to give them.
I think it's what a great story as well. You've lived it and breathed it, and it's a little bit like I do a little bit of product training, and ultimately I'm always talking about understand the people, understand the educators, or understand whichever market you're in, understand your customer, and be customer centric and understand. Well, I think it's really, really important. And do you feel that with your engineering team, ultimately what you're bringing in is that real life? This is actually what it's like. So because sometimes when it comes to requirements, it's not just about this is what the process is. It's always about what the people are like around it, in the sense of how much time they have. Are they technically whereabouts are they? Are they really technically astute? Or are they not so technically astute? Understanding those things I think is also important. Do you think that's what you're bringing, or?
Yeah, I hope so. It's interesting because the more time you spend with the engineers, the more you understand how the two different systems merge together. So honestly, at the start of the journey, you think, we'll just put this into the product. And they're saying, yeah, but how do you want me to build that? And what does it, and you need to get down to the nth degree, otherwise you get a nuanced set of coding instructions that don't work or don't make sense. And it's really interesting because last week I would say was probably a good example of how well the two sets of sort of expertise emerged together. So we had everyone in the office together, with the whole engineering team, and we had a few of us from the education team. And we were just talking about the next few blocks of enhancements to go into the product. And what the feedback we got from the engineering team was, it was really important to them to hear our sort of perspective on how that would be used. So the user experience at the end of the day, because ultimately that's what we're trying to simplify. And I think, you know, when I joined Alps has always been for the student, and always helping the teachers and helping the leaders in the school make the journey better for the student. And that's what drew me to Alps in the first place as well, because it's a really sort of non-commercial standpoint in a way. You know, it's very, the whole of Alps when I first joined felt very focused on schools, and very much focused on what will make school leaders' lives easier. And that really resonated with me, because for me, and when we talked to the the engineering team, my colleagues who've been senior leaders, I think we're all sort of very much, we have a similar outlook on this, and we go, this is what I would have spent a lot of time doing. How can we at Alps construct something that means that the time that you're actually spending in the platform, ironically, is reduced, but you get what you need. You get the absolute nub of what you need to take things forward from the platform. And, you know, that's absolutely the sort of mantra that we use with the engineering team as well. It's that how can we make people's lives even simpler so that they have to do less outside the platform, like manipulation of Excel and all of that. Now, I'm not saying that we're there and we've cracked it yet, but we're certainly we're on the journey, and definitely in the sort of roadmap to come. That's our key aim, is to support schools in just less time wasting, having to, you know, manipulate files and things, because whenever you're doing that, it means you're not having a critical conversation with a middle leader, or you're not having a critical conversation with the student, and you're not spending time looking at how can my lesson be better tomorrow so that I can make a difference to that kid and that kid and that kid. And that's that ethos kind of pervades Alps, and that's what I love about it. You know, from the CEO down, that's how we approach our sort of product development. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, perfectly sense. I think it's brilliant. You know, because there are, I speak to other companies, and sometimes, it's almost like the solution is almost like the schools or the mat or whoever it's aimed at. They're basically, this is the most important thing to them. It's like, no, kids are the most important thing to them. The performance of, and I don't even mean just performance. Everything else, the safeguarding, everything is, the child is the most important. And so, your bit of software, unfortunately, is either going to get in the way or it's going to make a difference. And I think, like you're saying, it makes a difference. And I always talk about this, all reducing friction, which is from the point of installation to the point of value, should be as small as possible, which is again what you're saying, which I think is amazing. It's exactly where companies need to get to. You don't buy tech just because you like playing with it, do you?
No, you don't. It's got to work for you, and it's got to, it's got to work for the people that need to use it as well. And what I mean by that is, it's really, schools are interesting places, as you'll be aware. But you've got people like myself as a deputy head I was looking at data on a that sort of level, and then you need your subject leads to look at data here, and then you need your staff, your teaching staff, to be using the data as well, but in a simple and easy to understand format, because with the best will in the world, quite a lot of people out there hate data. I mean, it's abhorrent to say, but some people hate data. I used to talk data at school, and people's eyes glazed over, and so like, Sue, just tell me what I need to know. But and then you've got other people who love data. Yeah. So it's got to fit all of those bills. It's got to allow people to access it and get what they need from it. And then, so what? What do I do with that? Because it's not going to solve all your problems. It's just telling you where your problems are. It's not going to solve any. It's just, that's where your problems are. You go fix it, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, it's putting the tools into the professionals' hands, isn't it? It's sort of going, look, I'm pointing you in a direction. I think this is what's happening. now you need to, as a professional, work out how to put the intervention into place to, or solve the problem, whatever. But man, there was a little sentence you used, which I think is amazing. It always sounds a little bit rude when I say it. I don't know why, but I always say to people, so what? I think that's such a good sentence to use with anybody when it can be a presentation, it can be anything where you go, so what? And then people get back to the nub of the problem when you actually really use those words. I think it's brilliant.
It's a story of my life. As a biology teacher, you say that to kids all the time. So what? So what? So what? Because it allows you to just come straight back to, okay, this, I'm going to solve it in this way. Right. Okay, good. Go do it.
Amazing.
It's a powerful couple of words.
It is. No, I agree with you. I love using them. But like I say, when I'm in front of some people, when I say it, it always sounds a little bit rude sometimes when I say it. But I never mean it. I always have to prefix with I know this may sound a bit rude, but so what?
That's the most important thing. Ultimately, you're held account as a school leader. You're held account for your results, whatever key stage you're at, whatever country you're in, whoever's holding you to account, whether it's the Welsh government or the English government, or whether it's your board of trustees or whoever it is, you're going to be held to account for some sort of target, for some sort of metric. And your job as a senior leader or a leader in a subject area, whatever, or as a teacher, is to say, I knew that was a problem because I identified it through like a platform like Alps, identified that, but so what am I going to do about it? And if I do this, so what? So what effect will that have? And ultimately, the ultimate answer is it will raise that metric, or it has to be your so what, it will raise that metric. Okay, good, go do it. But if you're not getting back to that metric, then you haven't got that strategy, you haven't got that process, you haven't seen it right through to the end, sort of thing.
No, amazing.
It works.
No, like I say, I'm absolutely with you.